Hello, Pride. How are you today? Um, we're back. War is profiteering. Um, that's what we have right now. We have more profiteering. Once upon a time, we did view profiteering for wars as a bad thing. It was immoral. It was bad. And we agreed on it. And now we're desensitized to it and it's a normal thing. So go figure, right? Um, America, as you all know, is claiming that Russia is making threats to invade Ukraine. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has been repeating himself saying that I'm not going to invade America or Ukraine. I'm not going to invade Ukraine. I'm not going to invade Ukraine. He keeps and then there's the security guarantees, right? For Biden. Biden has Putin on hold because he's awaiting his security guarantees. So that hasn't gone through. But there's a bigger picture to this right now. And no, I'm not a Putin apologist. I'm not a Russian agent. For you guys that know me, I'm just one of you guys. So, what is really happening, because if you didn't know any better right now, you'd think that Russia is about to invade Ukraine and all hell's about to break loose. If you just watch regular mainstream media, and that's what you're going to think. And I'm going to show you here what I'm talking about. But first, let's break this down. Let's unpack this like this. All right. Let's start with what America's involvement is in all this. Okay. Ukraine is on the board. First, let me actually say this. I just read a report saying there's 84% of people that don't know where Ukraine is. All right. And it's very important. Ukraine borders Russia. It's right on the border of Russia. Now, there's reports saying that Putin's mobilizing 100,000 of his troops around his country inside his own borders, inside Russia. And they're planning on invading Ukraine. And this is the report that came out. They've backpedaled a little bit. They said it was imminent, and now they're backpedaling a little bit. But this is nevertheless what's going on. So Ukraine is on the border of Russia, right? In 2014, the U.S. took down the elected government of Ukraine, right? They toppled the government and installed an anti-Russian regime in Kiev. Now, that caused a bunch of hysteria, and in Western Europe and Western Ukraine, these are neo-Nazis. I wish I was making this up. They're actual Nazis. They're not tiki torch carrying Nazis from North Carolina or none of that shit. Marching through people's backyards, frat boys. No, not that kind of Nazi. They're real neo-Nazis, descended from the World War II. They were tearing down monuments from World War II over there. So yeah, they're we toppled that government, installed anti-Russian regime, right? So that was the start of it. Now another country on Russia's border is Belarus, and in that country, there was an election that happened, and basically Lukashenko got reelected, and we didn't like that. So we stirred up a bunch of shit over there, created a bunch of violence and instability and all that USA shit. We destabilized that place. Then you have Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan is another country that borders Russia. And there was protests and, a bunch of things going on over there, instability. And come to find out later on that United States was behind that too. So you have three countries that border Russia that the United States has involvement in creating all this chaos. So even if, Russia was mobilizing their troops within their own border to safe it up, to make sure that doesn't spill over into Russia, I mean, don't you think that that's kind of that's their prerogative, right? Um, and after all, like if they did that shit to America, not only if they created, let's say Russia stirred up some shit in Canada and Mexico, and then, let's say Texas wasn't a part of America and they stirred up some shit in Texas too. Do you think that we would tolerate that? And if you think that if we mobilized our troops within our borders to do anything, and if Russia didn't like that, do you think we would even tolerate that at all? Do you think I mean, it's laughable when you think about it like that, right? And then you got the track record of America, our history. The shit goes back, right? I talk about it all the time on the show. And I haven't even really got really into it. I've only been doing the show a few months, 4 months now, or 5 months. So this is what you have. And what's the craziest, maybe the most scariest part about it is our media is pushing this shit harder than Joe Biden is. So it's truly scary. And then you have the NATO deal, right? So NATO, I could get into all where it came from, but long story short, after the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Soviet Union and all that, we had made a promise. James Baker in the 1990s, he was the Secretary of State at the time. He said that NATO wouldn't inch eastward towards Russia, and we have broke that promise. We've been moving NATO in that direction ever since, and we haven't stopped. And that's what Ukraine's about. United States wants Ukraine to become a part of NATO, and Russia doesn't want it. They don't want any more movement towards their borders. Now, here's the other thing: not the prime minister, the Russian ambassador just spoke yesterday. Caleb Maupin interviewed him and said that the mobilization of the troops along the borders, he goes, I don't know much about that. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't quote this, but he did say that they're stationed there. We didn't mobilize them to those areas. From his knowledge, he goes, that's where they're always at. So you can see how they manufacture consent. All right. And this gets good. All right. So I just want you to stay with me here because I want to make a couple points and I want to really see if you can understand who the real problem here is. Yeah, Putin's a bad guy, and I'm not a Putin apologist. Putin definitely is not in, I mean, that's kind of my point. This guy has nuclear bombs. Why? I'll get to that. What are we doing in Ukraine? Okay. So we got 3 countries in chaos along their border, and we're saying that they're planning on invading Ukraine. All right. Well, let me ask you this. And keep in mind, Putin, even Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, even said, I don't think they're coming over here. And mind you, these are neo-fucking Nazis that we're sending all this weapons to. We've been shipping helicopters and heavy artillery, fucking lethal weapons of all sorts. It's on its way. Defense bill, $500 million. They're pushing it through. All that shit. All right. So my question is, who's the real threat to world peace? Okay, let's start there. Let's see. How many military bases does America have around the world, right? America has about almost 1,000 around the world if you count the black sites, right? Okay. How many does Russia have? Military bases. About 20. And most of those are in former Soviet bloc countries, right? 20 to 1,000 all around the world. All right. We're all around the world. They're in the Soviet bloc countries. Okay. 20 to 1,000. Keep that in mind. How many does China have? Right. They have 1 outside of China. 3 in total. 1. That's right. I said China has 1 military base outside of China. So you have 1,000, 20, and 1. Or 3 if you want to count the ones that are in there. Either way. Okay, all right. Well, maybe we're just misunderstood. All right, maybe we're not really, trying to. We're just misunderstood. We're trying to be the world police. We're trying to bring freedom and democracy. We're just misunderstood. Okay, fair enough. Well, then let's go to how many global deaths caused by U.S. military. All right, since the war on terror, because we're not going deep into history, although it probably would get fucking crazy if I did. It's already going to be good enough to make my point here. We have 1 million military deaths since the war on terror, right? And that's a nice round number. That's interesting in itself. 1 million. Okay. Yeah, just 1 million. Damn. 6 million in total. So we've killed 6 million people since the war on terror began. Civilians and military deaths. All right. Great. How many countries has Russia bombed since 2001? The war on terror. Well, no, that can't be right. No, you sure that's right? Nah. Yeah. 0. 0. They have bombed 0 countries since the war on terror began. Now, okay, well, how many killed in combat? 0. 0 for Russia. All right. Now, you got 6 million deaths. Do you know what 6 million? I try to think about it like this. You go to a football stadium and there's roughly 80 to 100,000 people in a football stadium. I don't know how many of you guys have been to football stadiums, but it's the best representation that I could think of right now to give a good, strong point right here. That's 80 to 100,000 people right there. Let's just say it's 100,000. I think the Buck Stadium is like 80,000 or something like that. Take that, 100,000, add 20,000 to the Buck Stadium, and then times that by 10. That's 1 million people right there. Dead. 6 times. Now take that and times it by 6. And that's just since the war on terror. So you tell me who the threat to world peace is. Give me, can you really argue with that at all? And by the way, like I said, we're supporting neo-Nazis. Neo-fucking-Nazis. I don't know how to get that through your head, how bad that is. All right? We shouldn't even be over there. And this kind of leads me to my other point. There is nothing, absolutely fucking nothing in Ukraine for the American working class. Nothing. There's nothing in Ukraine for the American working class. There's nothing in Ukraine that's going to help the 80% of workers that live paycheck to paycheck. There's nothing in Ukraine that's going to help the 1 in 4 children living in poverty. There's nothing in Ukraine that's going to help the 2.5 million homeless population that we got. Half of those children, right? Half of those children. There's nothing that says you're more of a failed fucking state than you have 40% of your homeless population that actually has a job. Nothing says you're more of a failed fucking state than that. And there's nothing in Ukraine that's going to help any of that. And I could go on. I got a list of shit that I could just, healthcare, every fucking thing. So it's all about money. They're extracting more money out of us to go protect protect their interests, protect the rich people's interests. Now there's a gas line over there. I didn't even get into NATO not wanting to. I'll get back to that. Natural gas. It's a big deal. Weapon sales, yes, we always know military makes money off of weapon sales. That's always been a thing. But there's a Nord 2 gas line that Russia just constructed that runs to Europe. Germany, actually. but Europe, whatever. And in that, and Russia already has cheaper gas and oil. So when they turn, and this line just got constructed that runs to Europe. So when they don't want to turn that on because that's going to make prices drop. Right now, America is price gouging. They're having a price gouging party on everybody. They're just charging the shit out of people for oil and gas. There's a cold, it's really cold in Europe. They're having a bad season right now, and a lot of those people are using a lot of heat, trying to stay warm. So we're price gouging the shit out of them, and we don't want competition. That's really what that's about. And the Nord 2 pipeline it's constructed. It's ready to go. It's ready to turn on. So they already have cheaper oil and gas. And if they turn that line on, it's going to be a lot cheaper. And it's going to take business from us. So it has nothing to do with helping anybody. And this might be one of our clearest examples. It might be one of our most shining examples of how fucked we really are as a country and how we're the big bad wolf. So Russia sells their oil for cheaper, and competition for US and OPEC, they don't want that shit. So that's the other thing. And here's the real pussy shit about the whole thing. The free market, the capitalist system, the free market, right? It's supposed to be about competition. It's supposed to be bring on the competition, man. If you're going to be strong, your business, it's all about competition, free market. So we're going to take our guns and our missiles and our military power, our force, what we're known for, and we're going to go kill the competition, literally. That's what we're going to do. That's how we solve our problems. We don't outsell you. We don't out-manufacture you. We don't come up with creative ways to be a better business model. No, we just fucking kill you. And we'll kill your kids. And we'll kill your babies. And we'll kill every fucking thing until you comply or we get our way. And that's the tough truth pill you gotta fucking swallow. And I know it's disgusting because I've recently had to come to this. I grew up my whole life thinking America was the greatest thing. I'm just like you. But this is what business has turned into. This is where we're at today. And I don't think there's anything, that's, it's so bad. Like, I got an example right here, actually. The profiteering system, right? You want a good example? A couple years ago, Trump tried to create a peace deal with North Korea, right? And stocks of the weapon contractors immediately collapsed when he did that. Why? Because any kind of peace deal, we're going to sell less weapons. We're not going to need to manufacture weapons to keep that. So the stocks just fucking collapsed. And they knew really quick that was bad. And that's what it's turned. And then it's also an example of how you can identify this problem, right? So in thesetimes.com had a thing that said top weapons companies boast Ukraine-Russia tensions are a boon for business, right? As the United States weighs more involvement in the growing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, some of the largest weapon companies in the world, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, are openly telling their investors, those are stock people, that tensions between the countries are good for business. And General Dynamics, meanwhile, is boasting about the past returns the company has seen as a result of such disputes. So they're celebrating this shit. They want this shit. They need this shit. And now there's reports coming out. It just came out. I forgot to get it, but I remember it anyway. So they're saying now there's new reports just dropped right before I turn on the computer. There's new reports that Russia, USA is reporting that Russia is creating a fake story for Ukraine to get them to invade. And I mean, you can't make this shit up because they get paid to make that shit up. They need this war. That's what it's become. So you got to remember, they tell you that this is for national security. This is for safety. This is for the betterment of the world. No, this is fucking dangerous. We have to remember how dangerous this is. This is Russia. And if Putin's even half as dangerous as people consider him to be, then why are we doing this? Why are we egging him on? He has a nuke bombs or nuke bombs. And I think we're desensitized to what nuclear bombs are and how destructive they are and how the whole world could fucking end. War is not good. There's no military solution to anything. Death is not good, especially if you believe in a creator. If you're a religious person, a man of faith, or a woman of faith, you damn sure shouldn't be okay with any of this. But that's the system. That's where we're at. And I think it's important to say that. There's a lot of other shit I could go into, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's important to understand that there's two things. It's all about money, and there's nothing in Ukraine or any of these fucking wars for that matter that's good for the working people here at home. In fact, it just drains us worse. So keep that in mind before you go, listening to these programs that are telling you that war is necessary, war is good, we're doing the right thing. It's okay to be patriotic, but it's also okay to be patriotic in a way where you don't want to send your young men and women to die for these fucking very, very few filthy rich that they don't even need this money. Like their standard of living will change none if they get this money. They get just extra money. They won't even notice it. It's just a different fucking number on their banking statement. That's all it is for a very, very small group of people. But they're destroying everything. Everything. And if you don't think this pisses off other countries when we do this shit, sanctions are an act of war. We sanction everybody. We're drone bombing people. We do so much war. We outsource the war. So maybe, just maybe, we're the fucking problem. So it's something to think about. And here's one more thing I just want to mention real quick. Here's a secret about inflation and the things that are going on at home. Joe Biden right now, if he wanted to, could fix the food costs of the inflation. There's an inflation right now, and it's through the roof. And he could fix all that with the food costs. He could fix it with a stroke of his pen. Wouldn't need to pass a law through Congress or none of that shit. On the drop of a dime. How do I know this? Look it up. 1971, Nixon did the same thing. There was a 6% inflation, and he froze the inflation for a 90-day price freeze is what they called it. And it was all items. And that was that. So why don't they do that now? Yeah. They're just making their money. And they don't give a shit. War is bipartisan. So don't think that Trump's any better than them, or it's bipartisan. Capitalism is bipartisan. Imperialism is bipartisan. All the shit that they don't talk about is bipartisan. They'll talk about shit that doesn't even fucking really relate to anything. And they'll argue about that before they argue about something that really fucking matters. Whether we should be doing imperialism or not. So I want to keep this somewhat short. I mean, that's really all I got to say. But you can't just be the solution to all the world's problems. And sometimes you just got to take care of shit at home. And right now, we are a desperate people. a lot of people are struggling right now in America. We do not need this shit. And we do not, for sure, need to send more men and women to die for these pieces of shit that run this fucking country. So just keep that in mind when you watch all these programs telling you rooting on war or whatever. And, even Fox, even Tucker Carlson saying that, he doesn't want war. Well, I think that's just weird in itself, right? Because they were never the anti-war ones. The left was anti-war. And now it's flip-flopped. And I think that's all strategic because they know you're not going to change your party affiliation. They can change your opinion on things based off when they change their opinion on things. But they know you're never going to change your party affiliation. So you flip it and you get them arguing, and that will continue the divide. So I think there's a major psychological aspect to a lot of these things now, just to keep the status quo. It's never just about basic politics. They're manipulating the shit out of us. So take that for what it's worth. And no, I'm not a Putin apologist. I've never been to Russia. And although I hear that they've made a good comeback. And that's another thing to keep in mind. We didn't give a shit about Russia in the 90s under Boris Yeltsin when they weren't doing anything. We didn't give a shit about them. They were poor. They just lost. The Soviet Union broke up, and they were impoverished. They had nothing going. And then they started putting their oil and gas on the international market, started getting back. Now they're becoming powerful again, showing you that social policies actually work. They're gonna have a product to sell for cheaper, and it's gonna attract a lot of attention around the world, and they're gonna give them their business. But no, we can't do that. We can't have that. So here we come again. Same thing with China. 1949, they had their revolution, and they were poor as shit, and they made a comeback. 1976 or 78, they started privatizing things, but they just had strict regulations on those things. They won't let people own banks. They don't let their capitalist jobs run unfettered. They have regulations on them, so they don't get out of hand and they don't get corrupt. We could call it authoritarianism all we want, but look at us. Look at what we're doing. And keep those numbers in mind, because it's important to understand the context of all this, because if you don't, then and if you just watch mainstream media right now, you're going to believe that Russia's fucking, and I'm not saying we need to defend Russia or we need to defend Ukraine. I'm saying get the fuck out of there. Get the fuck out of there. Defend your people here at home. The people that are hungry. The people that are homeless. The people that are dying from COVID because they don't have health care. Well, you talk about putting a fucking mask on or getting a fucking vaccine, but you just ignore that the fact that we lost 300,000 of the 800,000 could have been saved if we just had basic fucking health care for all. It's all money. It's all money. How much money can we give to the rich? The very few cocksuckers at the top. Yeah, I'm over it. I don't know about you, and I'm over it. The gig's up. So, see you next time.